Good morning. Super good news for today's notes. First is that we're starting a brand new chapter, so lesson 10.1, volume of rectangular prisms. And for chapter 10, you may use a calculator to solve any of your side work. So if you don't already have a calculator near you, pause the video, go ahead and get one. I will be working with a calculator throughout the video, and you may use it on your homework and on your quizzes. However, that being said, I still expect you to show all of the work that I'm going to show you in these notes, okay? These notes are pretty short. They're only 3 examples just because it's not super complicated. I think we'll get the hang of it, but you do have to use your formula and you have to show all necessary work, which again is what I'll show you here. So volume is the amount of space inside a 3-dimensional figure. Whether you're comfortable with volume because of math last year, what we've already done, or because of science, it is the space that it takes up. And it's measured in cubic units, so units cubed, or units with an exponent of a 3. Now, we've got a 5th grade concept that we are going to add on to, and now we are using 6th grade, kind of 6th grade way to solve it. So keep that in mind. You must use our 6th grade method because that's the reason the 5th grade method worked. So our formula for volume of a 3-dimensional figure is V equals capital B times H. This is our baseline formula. This is the formula we will write down before we start any volume of a prism. Any prism. This is our formula. Now, in the past I've talked to you about using lowercase variables. That's because uppercase variables have a specific meaning. The meaning of the capital B. Capital B means area of the base. So this capital B means area of the base. Now, a prism, you can have different types of prisms. You can have a rectangular prism, which is what we're working with here in this lesson. You can have a triangular prism, which is what we're working with next section, 10.2. Or you can have an octagonal prism, right? Octagonal prism. You can have a pentagonal prism. You can have any type of prism. So this formula, though, works for all of those as long as you know how to find the area of that base. Now, a rectangular prism, when we write that out, I'm going to scoot over here. You don't need to write this, but rectangular prism. Triangular prism. Now, I gave you other names as well, but I'm not going to write all those down. Rectangular prism means the base is a rectangle. Triangular prism means the base of this prism is a triangle. So when we talk about area of the base, that means you have to know how to find the area of a rectangle. You have to know how to find the area of a triangle. So when we go to break down this formula, area of the base, we've got to break down that capital B. Because really it means area of the base, so if it's a rectangle, the area of the base is found by doing length times width. Now, we'll multiply it by the height. And that's how we find the volume. You write all parts of this formula whenever you are finding the volume of a prism. Alrighty? Write all parts of it. Because this, what's in blue, this highlighted blue, that will be the same for any type of prism. But this down here, V equals LW times H, that is your breakdown. Keep that in mind. So capital B means area of the base. Lowercase b means length of the base. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. So just keep that in mind. It has to be a capital B for area of base. Alrighty, and that is the first thing you write down every single time for any volume question. V equals capital B times H. Then you break it down. Alrighty, so example 1. Find the volume of the rectangular prism. So, volume, very first thing we're going to write down is our baseline formula. V equals area of base, capital B, times H. Now, since it's a rectangular prism, we find the area of the base by doing length times width. Then times height equals V, so I'm just bringing everything else down. The only thing I broke down was this L and W for length times width for area of the base. Now, the second thing we do every single time is label all parts of the breakdown formula. So, we've got V, we've got L, W, H. All right, now we don't know the volume because it says find the volume, so I'm going to leave that blank. Length, let's do 12. Width, 10. Height, 6. If you mix, in this case, if you mixed one of those up, the 12 and the 10, that's perfectly fine. We'll get the same answer. Alrighty, so let's plug in what we know. So 12, 10 times 6. All right, 12 times 10 is 120 times 6. Now, in this case, you don't have to do that side work. You can use your calculator. 120 times 6, V equals 720 centimeters cubed. It's cubed because it's volume. All righty. Example 2. Again, pause this if you need to. If you have any questions, let me know. Let's move on to example 2. So volume. So the first thing we do every single time is write our baseline formula. V equals capital B times H. Capital B means area of the base. Now, since the base is a rectangle, and this lesson is all about rectangular prisms, to find the area of a rectangle, we do length times width, and then we bring the rest of the formula down. Alrighty, the second step is to label all parts of the broken down formula. Now we're doing it like this today, and we're going to do the exact same thing tomorrow with a triangular prism. So any volume of any prism, we're going to do the exact same thing. Get in the habit now, whether you think it's necessary or not. Alrighty. Volume, we're going to leave blank since we don't know it. Length. Let's do, I would say the length is this 8 inches. Width, 3 1/4 inch. And height, 12 1/2. Now, my recommendation, because you're using a calculator, I would recommend making all of the fractions into a decimal. Remember that whole number, that 3, is going to stay before the decimal. Now, 1/4. 1/4 written as a decimal is 0.25. 12 is the whole number. It goes before the decimal. 1/2 written as a decimal is 0.5. If you weren't sure of those decimals, in your calculator you can do 1 divided by 4 because a fraction bar is just division, and it'll tell you 0.25. Alrighty, now I'm going to plug in what I know. Length was 8, width was 3.25 times the height, which is 12.50, or just 12.5. Here's where a calculator comes in handy. 8 times 3.25 is 26. Break this down into 2 steps. So if you have a computation error on your quiz or test, I know exactly where you went wrong, and I can still give you partial credit. 26 times 12.5, we get 325 inches cubed. So again, the calculator is handy, but you still have to show all of this work in purple. All right, you have to show that. Tonight on your homework or today, be sure you look at my answer key to check your work. Make sure you're showing the same amount of work, and then let me know if you have any questions. Now, our last example. Instead of finding the volume, we are going to use inverse operations to find the missing dimension. Now, missing dimension means we may not have the length, we might not have the width, we might not have the height, but we need to use inverse operations to solve. On our test, my biggest kind of area for improvement is that we are not showing our inverse operations, and it's causing us to lose points. Now we start with the same first two steps. So it says find the missing dimension. Well, we're talking about volume, so my very first step is to write our formula, our baseline formula. V equals capital B times H. And remember, capital B means area of base. Since we're talking about a rectangular prism, area of base is found by doing length times width. We're going to multiply it by the height of the prism equals volume. So that's all normal. The second part that is all normal is that we are going to label the broken down formula. So V, length, width, height. Now, that is all the exact same that we've already done for examples 1 and 2. The different part is what we label. In this case, instead of finding the volume, we're given the volume. So I'm going to write 84. Length, we're given the length, it's 6. Width is 4. What we don't know is height. So let's put an X there. A variable we put in the place of something we don't know. So now the third step, which is the same as before, is to plug in what we know. In this case, we know the volume. It's 84. Length is 6. Width is 4 times height. Alrighty, so I simplify. 6 times 4 is 24 times H equals 84. Now, to isolate the variable, we're looking for H. We divide both sides by 24. We divide because 24 is being multiplied by H. So I'm going to divide both sides by 24. What I do to the right, I have to do to the left. Again, no side work is necessary, so I'm going to do 84 divided by 24 in my calculator. And I am going to get, let's see, 3.5 meters equals H. And that is my final answer. Tonight on your homework, if this were labeled a little bit differently, so you don't have to write this, just watch. If it looked like, if it said V is 84, length is 6, if it didn't tell us the width, but it told us the height, okay, so I'm just rearranging it a little bit. Well, then I'd put X for width, and then I'd write my original, right? And then I'd plug in what I know, 84 equals 6 times X, because I don't know my width, times 4. In this case, we know multiplication is commutative, which means I can rearrange the 6, the X, and the 4. I write times 4 separately from the length and width just because I separate area of base in my head. But I'm going to squiggle this, and I'll do it in your homework just like that as well. And I'm going to squiggle it because that's me saying I'm rearranging it. I'm going to do 6 times 4 times X. And that's perfectly fine to do. And then 6 times 4 will get us 24 times X. And now we're to the same point that we were up above. So again, if you need to rearrange so that you can simplify before using your inverse operations, absolutely do so. Now, these notes were pretty short. They're fairly quick. Today, again, on your homework, look through my answer key before you ask any questions. Make sure you're understanding all parts of my work. You are skipping number 5, I believe. Let me see. You know what? That might have been tomorrow's homework. No, you are not skipping number 5. I apologize. Do not skip number 5. Do numbers 1 through 7. Let me know if you have any questions, and have an awesome day.